right, let's jump right into it. So we've got attorney Richard Alexander. I love having attorneys on the show, real estate educators like Larry. I love having you guys in studio. It's a great time that we can pitch and catch some ideas, things happening in the marketplace, current events. Consumer advocate advice is always what we're after, things that can help our consumers. So you practice personal injury law and criminal defense. Give us some nuggets of advice here.
Well, I mean, as far as the personal injury side, and you and I were talking about this because I brought it up on the show before about coverage, and a lot of people don't understand what it is. And the one thing about coverage, it's an option. You don't have to have but it stands for under-insured or uninsured motorists, and it's an option that you don't have to have by state law. But what it does in the event that an underinsured or uninsured motorist hits you and they're at fault, you have to look to your carrier after that to make you quote unquote whole.
Right. Because
let's just say they had PIP, or let's just say they had nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Then you're going to have to look to your carrier to make you quote unquote whole. The problem with with carriers is, man, they fight you just as hard as the negligent driver sometimes.
Right.
They don't want to pay out.
Right.
What is traditional, and I've seen this happen countless times, they will make a token offer of $1,000.
Yeah.
And I mean, to me, it's disingenuous. It's it's not good faith, but they don't have to make a dollar amount. And the other thing about is that they will look to any other source that has to be exhausted before the will come on board and cut a check for a penny.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's one of those things. But listen, if you need then thank God you have it.
Right.
Right? Because there are people out there that are really hurting.
Yeah.
Obviously. And that's sometimes, I mean, we've turned clients away, potential clients, because they come to our office and all they had was PIP.
Right.
And the other driver only has PIP or has no insurance.
PIP is personal injury protection.
PIP is personal injury protection, and that's its own little scam, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
But, a lot of times people come to our office and they're hurt, man, and we just tell them, listen, there's nothing we can do for you. You only had PIP, and the other person didn't have anything or PIP.
Yeah.
And, I mean, these people are hurting, and we have to literally turn them away.
Yeah, it changes lives, and it's just one of those things.
It does change lives.
It's another way, Richard, that where if you understand it, and you are in a position where you're proactive, and that's one of the great things I love about doing the show. I've been doing the show for over 6 years now, and I get to interview all these great people, all these fine folks that come in, these attorneys, CPAs, financial advisors, solar companies, all type water companies, different folks that are coming in and educating not only our listeners, but I'm learning this. And luckily, about a year ago, I said, hey, I better call my policy, make sure I have the underinsured motorist. And lo and behold, what happened about 6 months ago, I got in an accident myself. So I'm dealing with this whole scenario personally. And it can be life-changing. And it really, you got herniated disc in your back, your neck, and you're hurting. You're in pain. And the last thing you want to deal with is fighting the insurance company that you've been making payments to over the last however long you've had that policy, right? 10, 12 years? How long have I been driving now? 20-something years, right?
There's only one thing I would change from what you just said. You said fighting the insurance company. You're really fighting my insurance company.
Yeah, your own. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that when you look at the challenges that you have in life, I mean, some of these things you don't really foresee, and that's why we set this show up, to be that consumer advocate, to help people understand these different buying decisions. So personal injury law, what else are you seeing in that space? I think this applies to, could be bar owners, restaurant owners, business owners that don't have proper surveillance or security. A fight breaks out, somebody gets their teeth knocked in. I mean, there's all kinds of scenarios that play out in the parking lot too, and that would be on the negligent owner of the business, correct?
Yeah, and it's funny because do you remember when the cash cow was nursing home abuse?
Yes.
You remember that? I mean, that was big in this area. Nursing home abuse. You'd go there and find out that that they had convicted felons working for them.
Wow.
Or they just let people have these monster bed sores. The rounds weren't being made, and that was a cash cow for a while until that was just completely bled dry. Now it just seems like the new thing to go after is the Uber and Lyft drivers.
Oh, okay. Uber and Lyft.
Because it's becoming more prevalent, and now it seems that Uber and Lyft, I haven't really looked at the technicals on this, but Uber and Lyft now is getting more and more into the marketplace. Obviously, it's becoming a lot more prevalent. And, they have different types of policies with their drivers.
Right.
So you look to Lyft and Uber now as far as, making the driver, or the passenger whole.
Right.
If they get into an accident.
Yeah.
If they're on the clock.
I could see that.
Uber and Lyft. Yeah.
I could see that. Where else? It's like, where do you draw the line? I just saw one of the statistics about the pharmaceutical companies pumping opioids out. 400,000 deaths since, I think it was 2010, with dealing with opioids. And there was that one company that I think they're filing bankruptcy now, Purdue, I believe.
Correct. Right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Because they were pumping out something like 68,000 pills per capita in some West Virginia county in West Virginia. So number one, people aren't taking those. They're selling them, giving them away, or somehow making it onto the black market. It's crazy.
It's criminal, is what it is.
It really
is.
No,
there's no question about it. It's just. But you're right. They're on the verge of claiming bankruptcy, and they pretty much went on record to say, "Listen, if you don't take this offer, this settlement offer, we'll claim in bankruptcy, and you get nothing."
Wow. Yeah.
So they're they're playing hardball to the extent that they really mean it.
Yeah.
They're really looking at bankruptcy and going under.
Yeah, it's crazy. All right, stay with us right here on the Consumer Quarterback Show. When we come back, more from our contributors here in studio. We've got Larry Harbolt in studio, attorney Richard Alexander, and it's all about helping you understand your buying decisions. All right, let's go back to, we got in studio today Richard Alexander, attorney Richard Alexander, Alexander Law, trustalexanderlaw.com. Larry Harbolt as well in studio, real estate teacher and author. So I want to go back to Richard. We talked about personal injury law. First, is there anything left to talk about personal injury wise, or you want to jump right into criminal defense?
No, I think, with personal injury, the one most important thing, and I tell clients all the time, is that you need to have patience in the personal injury world, because in the beginning it's all about treating.
Yep.
Because if you don't treat, obviously, there's not going to be any insurance company that's going to, I hate to say this, but it's all about, cutting the check.
Yeah.
And if you're not treating, they're just not going to do that.
Yeah.
You could be in an accident, but if you're not hurt,
yep.
Honestly,
prove injuries, right?
Right, exactly. You're going to have to show that you've been hurt either through X-rays, surgical consult, surgical recommendation, or actually having surgery. But if you're not treating, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
You can have those pie in the sky fantasies, but it's just, insurance companies just not going to, do whatever it is you want.
Pony up money. Yeah, it all goes back to damages.
Absolutely.
A lot of times, I remember I thought about going into law when I first came out of school. I really enjoyed my business law class. One of my last classes when it went to business management, entrepreneurship was my degree that I ultimately received from Florida Gulf Coast University down in South Florida. And I enjoyed that class. It was great. You learn these stories. You hear about how this Ford dealership or whatever dealership did this, and the client did that, and the old person going to the baseball game, they got struck by a baseball in the stands. Who's at fault? Are they at fault? No, you assume that level of what is it called? Risk, and so you walked into the baseball field. You got to keep your head up for a pop fly. You know that.
Correct.
So there's all these different intricacies when it comes to lawsuits and how people can perceive it. But ultimately, what you said, Richard, it all comes down to proving damages. Correct?
Well, it's one of the elements.
Yeah.
You have to prove damages. It's very simple.
Yeah.
It's simple in that you have to prove damages, but what does that mean exactly?
Yeah.
How do you? What really gets involved in the personal injury side of it, I will say this, Brandon, is that nebulous term, pain and suffering, because a lot of people. One of my favorite depositions ever of a client.
Yeah.
And this was a soft tissue injury. And I took the depo on it. Since we're the plaintiffs, I pretty much just made sure they're not doing anything funny, the defense side. This is the insurance company's attorney.
Yep.
So it's a soft tissue injury, and unfortunately, that's one of those injuries in which there's not an MRI or an X-ray in the world that's going to say, "I'm not hurting."
Right.
So it's just you have to take the client at face value.
Yeah.
That I hurt. I'm hurting right now, sitting in this chair, whatever. So the defense attorney says, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the worst and 1 being no pain at all, where would you rate your injury?
Yeah.
And the client takes a moment to reflect and says, I'd say a 9.
Right.
I'm thinking, a 9? Dude, a 9 is like an amputation or giving birth.
Yeah.
You're not at a 9. That's what I'm thinking in my head. I mean, I can't say anything on a depot, but, it's unrealistic expectations when you're talking about, pain and suffering. You have to be realistic, too, at the end of the day.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're talking with attorney Richard Alexander here on the Consumer Quarterback Show. I'm your host, Brandon Rhymes. Yeah, because there's all types of damages, too. You get punitive damages, compensatory damages. Those are all different aspects of it, and it's interesting because they don't all apply when people sometimes just from the outside looking in, they say, oh, well, they should get punitive damages. There's all these different things that you have to prove to get those, right?
Right, and punitive damages, you have to go to the judge and actually ask for permission to file a punitive damages count.
Wow.
And you have to show that by way of the evidence through discovery.
Yes.
No one's entitled to punitive damages.
Right.
Okay, and the other thing is Florida's a comparative negligence state.
Okay.
Which means the plaintiff could be at fault. The plaintiff's the attacking or offensive party.
Right.
And they could be at fault in any type of negligence case.
Yeah.
So the jury is allowed to assess the percentage of damage because Florida is a comparative negligence state.
Wow.
So let me give you a perfect example. New Jersey, I happen to know because a friend of mine used to practice in New Jersey. You have to meet the 51% threshold if you're a plaintiff. If you didn't meet the 51% threshold, in other words, the person you're suing, the defendant, had to be at least 51% negligent. Now in Florida, you don't have to meet any percentage threshold. So if the jury awards, let's just say $100,000 damage, but they find the plaintiff 60% at fault, you're still entitled to $40,000.
Ah, okay.
So I mean, it depends on the state. The state can set the percentage because it's unique to state law.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, it's not the end all be all in the state of Florida when it comes to comparative negligence.
Yeah, it gets real touchy in there, real situational, especially.
It can also get very emotional, especially at mediation.
Yeah,
very emotional.
And especially years back they had the hot coffee case, and a lot of people totally misunderstood how that actually played out.
Correct.
And they talked about tort reform, and it actually limited the damages on some of the case. According to this documentary that I saw, I mean, you can watch a documentary, and of course they're slanted. But, you got to be real careful. We want you reaching out to Richard Alexander, trustalexanderlaw.com, local here to Tampa Bay. He's an educator. He gives back to the community, personal injury law, criminal defense law. Let's touch on criminal defense as well, Richard. Tell me what we need to know about criminal defense.
Well, the big thing right now is the governor has asked the Florida Supreme Court for its opinion on what to do with this, convicted felons. And Florida is one of the few states in the union that doesn't allow convicted felons to vote.
Right.
But we, as the voters, in the last 20, what was the last one? 2018?
16 was the presidential, yeah.
Right. 2016, we voted as Floridians that, we would like convicted felons, once they served out their time, to have the right to vote again. So the governor, DeSantis, is, trying to deal with, well, what does that mean exactly when you've paid all your outstanding fees and court costs, you successfully completed probation. I mean, what does that mean exactly? Because a lot of people, a lot of convicted felons, they just don't have the finances to pay fees and court costs.
Yeah.
So they're trying to see, the governor right now is literally asking the Florida legislation and the Florida judiciary that, what does this mean? Can we flesh this out? Like, exactly, is this unconstitutional? How do we go about making sure that felons have actually finished out their sentence?
Right.
Does that include the outstanding fees and court costs?
Yeah.
And, for some people, it's part of probation.
Yep.
For some people, it's if you come across that money, we'll have it as a lien. So, there's a lot of different ways to look at it. So that should be coming fairly soon as to how the state of Florida is going to interpret that.
Interesting. We got about 30 seconds left in this segment. Tell me, what's your thoughts on cannabis? Is it going to be illegal, or is it going to be legal at some point?
Yes.
Recreational? Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
It seems like the hill's already rolling. The momentum's there. It's going to be
coming. It's coming. It's like there's going to come to the point where you cannot hold your phone to talk.
Yeah.
We're going to go handheld. You can't hold it in your hand, just like texting and driving.
Yep.
It's coming. You can't hold your phone.
Yep.
And it's coming personal recreational use.
Personal recreational use. All right.
I see no other way.
There you have it. Attorney Richard Alexander, trustalexanderlaw.com. We also have Larry Harbolt in studio. Stay with us. When we come back, we're going to... All right, let's do some top tips, nuggets of advice, parting words of wisdom. Attorney Richard Alexander.
Well, I talk about this constantly as preventive law.
Yes.
Preventive medicine. You go to see the doctor so you don't have to go see the doctor. Mm-hmm. I feel the same way about law. I tell my clients all the time, listen, if you just called me ahead of time, I could have prevented you a ton of headache and a ton of money.
Yeah.
I'm about as public record as it gets.
Yeah.
So, call me. I'll be more than happy to talk to you about any particular situation. And if I don't know, trust me, I'll tell you I don't know. I don't have that kind of pride, but I'll find somebody who does.
Yeah, that's the thing about this whole show is it's like, hey, call us. We'd love to educate you, help you if we can. And if not, there's a good chance, a 99.9% chance, we know somebody who can.
Correct.
Because there's so many different areas of law. You got construction law, family law, all different areas. So we have those referrals for you. Mm-hmm. So, great stuff. TrustAlexanderLaw.com is the website. Larry Harbolt, give us some nuggets of advice, sir.
Well, one of the things that I really understand, real estate investors, they don't pay retail for properties.
Right.
They've got to find something where they can add value to it, or they have no reason to buy. And not all of the properties out there are listed in the multiple listing service. So if you can find properties that need love that aren't listed, there's an opportunity there. You can knock on the door, you can send a letter, you can do many different things. But don't think the only properties that are available are listed in the multiple listing service.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great point. There's lots of ways that you can get involved. We can, help you with that as well if you're looking to get into real estate. We talk a lot about, being able to utilize, for example, our veterans. We offer a quarter to half a point back to our veterans. 100% financing is available. I know all of our lenders will kick in, our lending partners kick in. So if there's a veteran out there, if there's a renter out there, we got to get you into home ownership. I'm really beating that drum on home ownership right now. It's a way that you can build wealth and again, take advantage of taxes. It's a retirement vehicle. You're paying that mortgage down. You're building up equity. And I like to talk about the market here because we do a lot of business in Pinellas County. But as I was talking about earlier, based on the numbers, we're at the lowest amount of inventory that we've seen. See this number, 4883, lowest number of active inventory in the last 6 years. It's down 23.2% in Pinellas County. Now, if you come down here to solds, check this out. You've got the lowest number year-over-year sales are down. 2,011 sales compared to 2,151. So what does that mean, Larry? You divide these numbers here, equals a seller's market. There's a 41.2% appreciation rate. So long and short, we keep hearing about a market shift, but Tampa Bay is somewhat insulated here, in my opinion, because it's such a great place to live, work, and play.
Right. Well, and the type of properties that I'm looking for, most of the people, they don't know what those stats are.
Right.
They are trying to sell a property. They have a reason why they're selling. I've got to find out what that reason is, because anybody that is going to make an investment needs to know the answers to the important questions.
Right.
And one of them is, what do you need the money for?
Right.
If I can't ask a seller what they need the money for, how do I know how I can help them? Because one thing I'm not going to do is give them all cash. For the simple reason, no matter how much cash you have, if you do a lot of business, it's never going to be enough. You're going to run out. So conservation of cash is always a philosophy that I use, and that's what I teach all my students.
It's a great point. It's a great point because that's what it's all about. It's not just about the magic number. What's the sales price? What's the ask price? It's about the terms. It's about how that equates to your personal financial blueprint, right? Your taxes versus what you're making. Okay, so now we're taking that a step further. I'm going to go. We got to do this quickly, but if you look at the 180 to 199 price point, you had 141 listings on that line over here. 141 listings over in August, right? So if you drop that down, if you come down to 180 to 199 right there, out of those 141 listings, you see that above, there's 95 that actually sold. So interesting. Now let's come down to the 700 price point, right? So 700 to 800, 77 properties sold or listed. Now, out of those 77 properties, only 14 sold here. See that? 14 properties sold. So the difference in price point means the number of buyers and sellers that are playing ball in that space. And that's going to lead you to, on that particular example, 1.5 months of inventory, and the properties are selling pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. So it's an interesting layout when you look at the overall dynamic. And that's the difference between an educated real estate agent that knows how to tell you to price your property, knows how to price the property to where it's going to sell and not just be listed. Because if you're just listed, you're selling the other people's listings. That's the bottom line. So great show today. I want to thank Attorney Richard Alexander. I want to thank Larry Harbold as well.
My pleasure.
For coming in.
Thank you,
and
always.
all of our producers behind the scenes putting this show together. We got a great team here at Salem Communications putting the show together. Appreciate everybody involved. We want you to please go out there and consider committing your own random act of kindness. Do something kind for one another. There's lots of ways you can get involved. Pack up some food, hand it to that person that you see in need, donate some blood, be involved in the community. Lots of ways that you can do that and be a force for good in the community. We'll see you next time right here on the Consumer Quarterback Show. Make sure you follow us online at Brandon Rhymes1 on Instagram and Twitter, the Consumer Quarterback Show page out there on Facebook, and engage with us. We want to help you win in any marketplace. We'll see you next time right here on the Consumer Quarterback Show, consumerqb.com.
You've been listening to The Consumer Quarterback, Brandon Rhymes. Whether it's real estate, consumer, or financial advice, let Brandon call your next play. Contact Brandon Rhymes at 813-670-7372. That's 813-670-7372. Online at consumerqb.com. And join us next time for The Consumer Quarterback Show, weekday afternoons at 5 on AM 1380. The